But anyways, are you guys watching the classes on YouTube or not?
No.
No? No time?
No.
But you are watching Korean drama, right? What a bad news. Anyways, sometimes some people say, oh, sometimes I speak kind of fast, right? Sometimes I get too happy and then I start speaking fast. So after the class later today, you can, watch the class again instead of watching Korean drama. Okay? All right. So like I told you, I think everybody must take this class in Kenya, even all over Korea, all over the world. The class on culture, because the world is changing, and I'm very happy because in this class we have people from almost everywhere in the world, right? From Europe to Africa, to the other side of Asia, meaning everybody has his own world view, world system, how they see life, right? And we are all together in this class. This is why I think everybody must take this class, of course, with me, right? So, but today we will look at traditional health. We will compare it a little bit with what we call modern medicine. Why do we talk about it? Because how we see health also depends on our culture, right? So, and as you know, I like to always start by asking questions. Even though some of you guys don't like talking to me, but I will keep asking questions, right? So we will often ask, when you are sick, what do you do? It's an important question that we usually ask people, because we just realized that over 80% of people, when they are sick, they don't usually just go to the hospital, all right? So what do you guys do? When you are sick, do you go to the hospital? If you feel sick today, do you go to the hospital immediately? Yes? No? Do you go? What do you do? You sleep? What else? Some people have like, okay, let me have my own remedy. My mom has a secret potion, If you go to some places, Clara is laughing, maybe it's the case, right? And in some other cases, just like I told you, for example, in North America, mostly in Canada, where I spend a lot of time. Oh, chicken soup is good. Kind of like, hey, chicken soup, right? So people have different belief system. So, but I will jump over it. I've been in Korea for a while, so I pretty much have an idea how these things work. So we'll talk about traditional medicine, a little bit of Korean medicine as well, not that much, because we have a special chapter on Korean food and culture. So what do I want to look at today? It's basically when we're talking about the definition of health. Right? I put here conventional system of healthcare is what we call biomedicine. Biomedicine, if you want, we talk about modern medicine today, right? So when we look at biomedicines here, basically what is happening here, we are looking at the symptoms. You go to the hospital, this is how you're feeling. And we have what we call so we do some laboratory tests. Remember, when we finish the other chapter, right? We talk. We talk about it when we do nutrition assessment, and sometimes we have like laboratory testing. All right. So in modern medicine, we look at it, right? How do we treat the disease? Of course, today is pluralistic. What does it mean? It means we are using different healthcare systems. right? We are using different healthcare systems. For example, people can go to the hospital, or people can go to a traditional healer, all right? So you have places where people reuse like herbal medicine. For example, in Korea, we have Korean traditional medicine. How do we call it again? Hanyak? Hanyak, right? So you can go to a traditional healer. So we say it's pluralistic. And I put here, 70 to 90% of sickness is managed outside of the biomedical system. What does it mean? It means that when people are sick, most of the time they go to the hospital, right? Sometimes they have to treat themselves, or they will use some traditional practices, okay? And these are more and more and more popular. And if you go to the US today, we talk about this Asian medicine is more and more used now, right? Where people trust more on herbal medicine than the chemical that we can put on the body. All right. So now, this is the definition of health by the World Health Organization. Right? The definition of health. It says here that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social being. So being healthy is not only absence of disease or infirmity. All right? So to be healthy means, okay, physically, okay, my body is feeling fine. Mentally, I'm actually okay. All right? And socially, with people around me, I'm also okay. So this is the full definition of health. Now, because we study culture, we study culture, so the definition of health can be different. It can be different depending on where you come from. All right? For example, if let's take the example of the First Nations in Canada, in the US, those that we call usually the Amerindians, right? So in their case, I mean, we give them like, we give them different names, Amerindians, or you can call them, sometimes we call Native Americans, okay? So, historically, we know that they were the first people in Canada and in the US, right? They were like the first people. So we will have a chapter studying a little bit their food and culture. But what is their health? What is to be healthy for them? Be healthy for them. The question is, how do we achieve health? We talk about harmony. Harmony with what? With nature. Okay? Harmony with nature. But nature, in their culture, in their understanding, nature also involves not only the natural world that we know, it also, involves family. All right? So involve family, okay, the nature as we know, okay, and also to some extent when I say nature, yes, the environment, right, and also the community. So when we talk about the community here, you can see that the definition, how do we achieve health? Right? Maybe that's the question I should have put here. Based on different culture, how do I achieve health? Or what is my definition of health? Okay? So this This Native American, you see that the definition when we talk about community here is not far off the definition by the World Health Organization when we talk about social well-being, right? So the life in community is very important. For example, for the Africans, okay, Africa is actually pretty large. Sometimes it's difficult to classify. But oftentimes we talk about sub-Saharan Africa and the upper part of Africa. Oftentimes the culture is closer, right? Is closer to the Middle Eastern, right? So I'll make a distinction a little bit about it. And as you know, culture and religion sometimes is kind of a mix. So the African conception of health is actually pretty similar as well. So it actually involves a sort of balance, right? So a sort of balance with nature as well, with the living people who are alive. I will explain this a little bit. That your health can also depend on me, because if I have some superpower, I can make you sick by doing some, you know what I mean? Some little things there, and then you start feeling sick, right? It also involves people who are dead, you know? So the ancestors of people who are dead, can you read? So people who are dead, they will also play a very important role. And of course, believing in God is very big in Africa. That is being like a monotheist God, meaning like one God who created the universe, or a different God, depending on what they believe that the origin of the earth was. So all of it, you know, it contributes to how healthy they are. For example, now I'm having a bit of headache, so maybe somebody's sending me something from back to Africa, right? So I have to be careful. So but that's a belief system. There is always a reason for anything. Okay? There's always a reason for anything. Remember, I gave you the definition in biomedicine. We look at the symptom, we treat the symptoms in the laboratory. But here, in the African culture, very close to the American culture and to the Asian culture to some extent, we look at the whole body and the whole spiritual thing. Most of the time is very, very, it's spiritual. All right? Okay. Can I erase this? All right. So, how about, for example, we talk about the Asian. Yeah, Asia is very big, I know, and it's not sometimes fair to just say Asia, because the conception of health, for example, in India and the eastern part, for example, China, Japan, and Korea is a little bit different. But we talk a little bit about it, and we have a full chapter on it. So we also talk about this harmony. I think most of you guys know about it, right? Like yin, is it yin and yang? I believe, right? I think in Korean is and yang, right? A type of harmony. You will also see that for those who have the PPT, starting with the energy key that will bring the balance. So there is a reason for everything. We reach that balance of the hot and the cold, man and woman, red, black. So there is that sense of balance. Of course, if you go to some part, certain Asia, you know, mostly certain Asia. I just put like India, but you can incorporate other parts. You can put other countries around India as well. For them, they look at the mind, the body, and the soul. The mind, the body, and the soul. And of course, they will tell you that it is important to rest, and it is important to have a good nutrition. Okay? So, we'll talk a little bit about, just a little bit, the Indian Ayurvedic medicine, which is actually getting more and more and more popular today. And even in China, if you go to China, medicine is firstly predicated on nutrition. Okay, first predicated on nutrition, and we know that today, over 50 years ago, we did not have a lot of cases of cancer and diabetes in the Korea Peninsula, right, including Japan and China. But as we go through that transition, now we just realize the importance of nutrition and how these diseases are coming. I can also talk about the Latinos, South America, Latinos, Middle Eastern. The balance is really have a life that is centered into God, right? And when we say God, remember, we have to talk about religion, right? Even though we talk about culture, and I keep saying that from day one, it's difficult to really make a difference between culture and religion, because religion becomes part of who you are, and the way you act, everything that you do. If you feel God, if you think that there is a creator who made everything possible, then your life, everything will be based, all your decisions, the food that you eat, how you talk, how you interact with people, you will live in the fear of that supreme being, which is God, all right? So, and as we studied before, we say that religion will tell us how to cook the food and which food we cannot eat, right? So this is actually part of the people. So the definition of health will be based on the belief in God. Chingmunisayo? Everything is good? Good? All right. So, this is just a repetition of what I just said. Other culture include natural, spiritual, supernatural dimensions. If you had a PPT, you will just see that it's the same thing, basically, that I explained here. All right, so the meaning of health, I just explained it. It depends on where you're coming from. Harmony with nature, when we talk the case with the Native Americans. Absence of malevolent environmental forces, very close to the African culture. Forces around us, spirits around us. Living according to God's will. We're talking about the Latinos, Middle Eastern. Religion has a big part of it. Avoidance of pollution. Dependent on relationship with the universe, right? And again, so you have different people, the belief system, the harmony with the universe, the forces around the universe that will determine the outcome with our health. Pleasing ancestor spirit. Pleasing ancestor spirit is also very important in a certain part of Asia, right? Even in China, I think there are people who have like plantation, who have crops. They may bury, their ancestors or their parent goes to that, to have chances, right? So people have different belief system. Mind, body, and soul, very popular in certain part of Asia. We talk about India, like I just mentioned a minute ago. Can accomplish daily responsibility. This one is actually close to modern medicine or biomedicine today. All right? So all these words, you find them in the summary that I just wrote for you on the board. Okay, what are the health attributes? Of course, I think that everybody is okay with that. It doesn't really matter on your belief system. You know, when we look at the physical part, we look at your skin color, or your skin is changing, it's itchy, we have things going on, they say, ah, something is wrong. So we talk about symptoms, right? What is a symptom? Simple definition. A symptom, well, it just tells me, oh, something is wrong, right? It's not as usual, okay? Weight maintenance, I will be talking about it in a minute, because this is sometimes a big problem when we have to manage the health of people. Depending on the culture of people, depending on their culture, their conception of weight will be different. I think I mentioned that already. Normal body function, undisturbed sleep, right? If you don't sleep well or you keep waking up, maybe these are signs that your body is not in harmony, your health is not at the top. Appropriate energy level. Okay, by the way, energy is not kilocalorie here. In nutrition class, usually when I say energy, we talk about kilocalorie, not in this state, right? Behavioral norms, right? Behavioral norms. If you act funny, here again, we talk about the community. If you don't act like everybody, then we may wonder what's wrong with you, right? We talk about mental state problem. You remember when we studied Mr. Berry's acculturation theory, there was a section talk about marginalization. Somebody who's rejecting his culture and the host country culture, and oftentimes they may go through some mental problem. All right, body image. The body image today, in 2017, is something that is actually pretty big. In any culture you can go to, how do you see yourself, right? So, the perception of weight, health, and beauty differ worldwide. And I already mentioned it. For example, in the Native Americans, you know, for example, pregnancy is a healthy state, all right? If you go to some country, being overweight is actually a sign of health, okay? And now if you go to other countries, mostly in the West and a lot too in Korea, being thin is the way to go, okay? So, this is actually different depending on where you go. What? So it becomes then very challenging. Remember when we did, when we closed the last class, we talk about nutrition assessment. Remember, in one of the elements of nutrition assessment was what? Anthropometric measurements. And when we talk about anthropometric measurements, we talk about body mass index. Remember? And what did we say? We say that a body mass index that is over 25 is what? Is overweight, right? And if it's over 30, the person is considered obese. But now, this is a challenge if we have to treat obesity related to non-communicable disease. Why is it a problem? It's a challenge. It's a challenge because of how I view culturally, how I view my weight. You understand? Because if being overweight from where I come from is good, right? Then how can we treat that problem? You understand? A couple of years ago, and it was a challenge, a big challenge, because in the Arab world, when it was mostly in Egypt, some part of Middle East as well, when women were getting married, they have to eat a lot, right? They have to eat a lot and gain a lot of weight, because in this culture, having like some extra weight is actually good, okay? But the underline, the challenge about it is, suddenly we can see rise in problems such as what? Type 2 diabetes. Everybody remembers the picture. Problem of high blood pressure, right? And problem related to cardiovascular disease. So culture, or my worldview, can be a challenge, right? When I think of treating some disease, all right? This is why biomedicine has its place, because we do some investigation in laboratory, we show facts, and people have to make a decision about it, right? Of course, a pluralistic view is good, and we embracing our cultures. At the same time, we need to have an honest discussion into our belief system. All right. So, I mentioned this before. Okay, I forgot to mention this part. I put here in yellow. Values often change with immigration. Why did I put it in change with immigration? When I say change with immigration, the keyword here is the change. And when we mention the change, we're talking about what? Acculturation, exactly. Oh, somebody is studying, right? Feeling happy. All right? Yeah, it should be part of us now, right? So, what does it mean? It means if you go to a country where being thin is the way to go, then you have to, you have to change. And how do you change? You are being influenced by people, you change your diet. But if you go to a country, right, where you need to be a little bit heavy, you also change. So this is why we say that values, remember that values is part of the definition of culture, right? Values will change with immigration. And remember the question I asked last time, does acculturation make immigrants sick? All right? Because suddenly people have to change. They have to adapt to the new environment. Because everybody is the same. All right? Everybody is the same. And then suddenly, there's a lot of pressure associated with this change of culture. All right? All right, so I mentioned this before, the balance of the yin and yang, that is very, very centered into the Asian culture. We're talking about China, Korea, Japan, right? I put here in terms of food, we put here cook at low temperature, white light, green in color, and then the yin. We're talking about high heat, spicy, and since I've been in Korea, we have that, sometimes we eat hot noodles, and depending on the season, we eat cold noodles, all right? So that balance is actually very important. When we talk about that, we talk a little bit more about the yin and the yang when we will study the Asian food and culture, starting with the word ki. Ki is energy in Korean, right? How the world come to be, the existence of the world, and created that harmony. So the same yin and yang is found in the Korean flag. You can see in the Korean flag, in this case we're talking about and yang. So the culture is very similar. And yesterday I was talking with a graduate student. When you look at the Korean position in Asia, from invasion from Japan, the presence of China, also far a little bit, Mongolia to some extent. This is a country that was somehow into a lot of pressure with different culture being here. All right. So today, like I told you, not to your class, to the graduate student, it is difficult to appropriate now one culture and say, okay, this is really who we are. We talk about the Korean identity. What does it mean to be Korean? All right, what does it really mean to be Korean? Is it the values, or is it the skin color? What is it really? All right, and the big problem that we had in Korea for many years is what we used to call mixed blood and pure blood. These are words since 2007. The UN Committee on Racial Discrimination, we cannot use this word anymore. All right. So, but the culture has to be defined by what? The language, our habit, our food habit, and some of the things that universally everybody agree on. Okay, so the Korean culture is very close to the Chinese one, and also the Japanese also had a big impact into the Korean culture as well. All right, but we'll study more about it on the chapter related to Asian culture, food and culture. The quantity of food, of course, this is the big problem I have with my mom. Every year I visit her, she thinks I'm too skinny, I have to eat a lot. And I told her I just have to eat just enough. All right. So again, culturally speaking, depending on where you go, the quantity of food is very important. How much you eat, and if you don't eat much, the person who cooked the food may be offended. Okay. So we will look at some of those things as well. Okay. For some of you who travel, I know some students went to different countries. Heavy meals, ample food, being overweight, in illness or poor health, then we talk about losing appetite. All right. By the way, I sent you the study guide for chapter 1 and 2. Did you see it? Yeah, and since I'm very nice, I gave you all the answers too. Did you see the answers? Yeah, so I guess we are ready for the quiz next week. Just review it nicely. All right, so strength and vitality here is the same thing we study in nutrition. At the end of the day, what is the idea? Okay, milk builds strong bones. In nutrition classes, we saw some of those things. Carrot, improve eyesight. Candy for quick energy, even though I'm not a big fan of this one. Chicken soup is a cure-all. I often mention that part. All right? Strong food, weak food, and in Korea, we talk a lot about ginseng. All right? Ginseng does almost everything. Okay? So, here, sympathetic quality of food. What do we have here? It looks like a human body part or organ. Say, okay, you are what you eat. You are what you eat. Okay, so properties of food incorporate to physical traits. For example, the Italians, generally speaking, they will think that, drinking red wine will improve blood. Why? Okay, the wine is kind of red, isn't it? But to their defense, like I told you, I often tell you to stay away from alcohol, but the only one I can allow is red wine. Scientifically speaking, is what we usually call the French paradox. I'm happy we have some French students here. The French paradox, what it is, like we look at the French diet with the American diet, it is not so different, right? But what is happening is the level of cardiovascular disease, right? In these Latin countries, in France, we're talking about cardiovascular disease. So we have France here, and we have USA, right? So we say, okay, the diet is similar, But cardiovascular disease seems to be lower here compared to USA, right? And we look at how they eat, it's not that different. This is why we say that it's a paradox. But we ask the question, why? Why do you think it's so? I have kind of an idea, but any French student, do you guys know why? Why cardiovascular disease seems to be a little bit lower in France compared to the US? Huh?
Eating wine.
Drinking wine. You don't, you don't think so? What do you think?
I heard that red wine has some specific things in it that prevent cardiovascular disease.
Yeah, I agree with you. Gian, you were right too, right? So you disagree. Do you like red wine?
No, it's just it's not alcohol.
Yeah.
Good sense.
Yeah. You don't drink red wine?
No.
Yeah. Alcohol is not your thing.
Yes, but not red wine.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't drink alcohol, I'm actually okay. We can be friends. Alcohol is not my thing too. I make exception for two things: red wine and cheesecake. All right. So, but what he said, it is not wrong, and that's my theory as well. We have a molecule inside that we call resveratrol, right? You talk about things that are into the red wine, and when we look into the American food and culture, what is their favorite drink? What do you guys think that they drink a lot? Is it red wine? I don't think so. What do you think of American, Mr. So? What do you guys drink in America?
Kind of thing, like specially cooked type thing.
No, in terms of alcohol.
Alcohol? Beer?
Yeah, exactly. You know. So, but, and I'm not saying that it's completely like true or whatever, but because we're talking about food habits, right? And remember that food habits, will affect our health. The way we eat will have a direct relationship with our health to some extent, right? You go to the baseball game, you go to basketball game, this is what people have, just like they drink beer and stuff like that. All right. So the red wine has that molecule, resveratrol, that has a good effect against cardiovascular disease. So we may say, okay, the French paradox. This is why we call it a paradox, because they're supposed to be at the same level of the U.S. as well, right? And this is the problem that we also have in Korea right now with the diet transition. You guys spend a lot of time drinking beer and soju. So chimek, as you know, is a bad combination. So we can talk about some of the things like that. The Italian thing, okay, red wine is going to improve blood. American women use gelatin to strengthen fingernails, right? The ginseng increased strength and stamina in Korea. I remember the first time I came in Korea, everybody just talked about ginseng. Even before I came to Korea, the Korean ambassador gave me a book on ginseng and said, oh, it will be good for you to study ginseng. I didn't really know what it was. American eats cabbage, family veggies to reduce risk of cancer. All right? Oatmeal and fish to prevent heart disease. So we're talking about sympathetic food here. I believe, oh, this food does this food does that. All right, so now, very important aspect here that we have to define, and sometimes it's very confusing. Myself too, I was kind of confused at first. English not being my first language is actually French. So hello to my French people. So the definition of illness, disease, and sickness, all right? So sometimes it can be confusing at times, and I put a new slide for you guys to understand. You don't have that slide, so you can just take a picture, all right? So illness is a perception or reaction to a physical or psychological condition, all right? But here, when we talk about a disease, we talk about abnormalities or malfunction of a body, or an organ in the body. We're talking about a disease here. My liver, I have a problem with my liver. All right, one organ is not working well. But now, if I say I'm sick, we talk about sickness. Sickness is englobing, the entire disease illness process. You guys look confused, and I don't blame you. I will help you, right? So we have. I put this picture. You can take a picture of this one. You don't have this slide. You can take a picture, but if you want, I can send those slides as well. But it's not a big deal. You can draw it on your paper, right? Okay. So here, what do you understand? Here, illness is caused by a disease. So that's the first thing you have to understand. Let me go back a little bit. I put here illness is a perception of and a reaction of a physical or psychological condition. Alright? But you have to go back again to the definition by World Health Organization on what is health. A disease, abnormalities or malfunction of a body, organ, and system. And I told you that sickness includes both of them. Okay? So now, when we talk about a disease, what did I put here? The definition of a disease is what? Abnormalities, malfunction of a body organ. So then, when I say that I'm sick, I'm englobing these two aspects. So, but again, culturally speaking, this is the debate. Like I told you, culturally speaking, is going to be different depending on where you come from. So, sorry, I put this picture. You don't have it. You can take a picture as well. So the perception of sickness will truly depend on the situation. Here I put sickness, society. We have health professionals. We talk about nurses, medical. Oh, a lot of pictures. Are you taking a picture of myself too? Okay, let me. I think last year somebody took a picture of me. Never gave me a picture. Hey, you took a picture of me, right? All right. So health professionals. So what is happening here? We talk about a disease, scientific evidence, right? So the disease here we talk about malfunction. How do I know this is malfunctioning? I have a scientific evidence, laboratory test. I know something is not working well, right? Scientific evidence here, this is why we call it sickness. And from sickness, societal interest, welfare, we can talk about it. But now, from the illness, this is a patient. We talk about psychological, I'm feeling sick. I have the impression I'm sick. For example, now I have a bit of headache, right? So the patient is suffering pressure from a patient, he's suffering some form of pressure. So, in his mind, he is sick. Sometimes you can go to the hospital and the doctor tells you, oh, there's nothing, you're actually good. Alright? Here again, the health professionals' conception of sickness. So they will examine you and look at the situation and things like that. So, the overall thing can be at times very confusing if you have to define the words, but look at it with the eyes, different eyes, with a different view in terms of what is my culture, what is my worldview, what is my definition of sickness, and it will be different from one person to another one. Now, again, in biomedicine, the biomedicine is different because we look at the cause. For example, if you talk about illness, or we say that you are sick, we will ask the question, right? We will look at so first question we ask, the symptoms, right? Or you can say, how did it occur? All right? Okay, what happened? Okay? So we have this, and then we ask, how do we cure it? So this one can be seen as a separate question, second question. So we have like 3 questions here because they can be all independent. We look at the symptoms. We just like, oh, how did it occur? What happened? Right? We look at the symptoms and then we ask the question, how do we cure it? So in biomedicine, this is what we do. Okay? This is what we do. Of course, we look at different things as well. We ask people, okay, do you smoke? What is your food habits? We basically find the reason why you have this sickness or illness to some extent. And there are, of course, other cases when we talk about heredity or the environment and things like that. All right, so look, when we look at the other theory about sickness, the key word here is sickness. So what we're going to do next week, we're going to spend maybe, we don't have much left here. When we look at the other theories in terms of sickness from other culture, right, from the patient, the natural world, the social world, supernatural world, and then we will close with this one. So Monday we will finish this chapter. I will probably take maybe just 10 to 15 minutes, maybe. And after that, we will do the study guide, just check if you understood the chapter. Okay. So everybody needs a cell phone. We'll do the Socrative application again, and then Wednesday, as you know, we probably start a new chapter, but we have a quiz on Wednesday. Is the only quiz we're gonna have for the semester, right? So get ready for that one. The quiz will be on chapter 1 and 2. Okay? Everybody is happy? I'm happy. So have a nice weekend and remember no soju, okay? Have a nice day, guys. Yeah. This PPT, I upload the last one already. Yeah. This one.